Too many bowl games? Who said we had too many bowl games? When we've got the ACC and the SEC going at it, regardless of how far we've got to go down the standings to reach Texas A&M and Wake Forest, these two teams have to be on the field together. This is great stuff. I love the bowl games, and I celebrate the bowl games and embrace the bowl games, even when you've got two teams that are far from championship caliber on the field. It's the ACC and the SEC. It's Wake Forest over Texas A&M in a complete thriller. Crazy game, 55-52. 900 yards passing, 1,258 total yards, 63 first downs. A game that featured Texas A&M blocking 2 punts on Wake Forest, 2 first possessions, 1 for a touchdown, the other to set them up at midfield, and a Christian Kirk 45-yard bomb down to the 1-yard line. Travian Williams takes it in from there, and Texas A&M led it as the underdog, 14-0. On one hand, we have the, at least if the recruiting rankings mean anything, the faster, more athletic team in Texas A&M. The recruiting classes have been tremendous under now ousted coach Kevin Sumlin versus the more stable, more in sync program that's got its program under Dave Clawson that has improved considerably. We have covered Wake Forest here at Mark Rogers TV since we started. We have had on Wake Forest bloggers from SB Nation on a regular basis. We have talked to a number of people in the ACC and looked at this team and covered the bigger games for Wake Forest. The offensive transformation, as they discussed in the broadcast, is alarming in a good way. It's just has to be celebrated. This Wake Forest team this year, before the bowl game, had already set a school record with 404 points scored. Tack on a mere 55 to that. 459 points scored for Wake Forest this year. They rose from the 108th, number 108 in pass efficiency offense, to number 13. John Wolford, their quarterback, used to be under siege each and every game. They played a game against Boston College a couple years ago in which they lost 3-0. Or they may have won the game 3-0. Regardless, it was a 3-0 game. There was next to no offense. There was like 50 yards of offense. This has turned into an offensive juggernaut. Unfortunately for Wake Forest, John Wolford out of Jacksonville finishes up his career as the all-time touchdown leader at Wake Forest, accounting for rushing and passing touchdowns, almost 80 touchdowns. And he moves on, so they're going to have to replace him. But much of the rest of the firepower is back for Wake Forest. What we saw in the first half especially, and then once they got it back cranked up in the second half, was an offensive line that gave Wolford plenty of time to throw. This was not the case just a season or two ago. Running back, Matt Colburn. What is his nickname? I jotted it down. The Byrne, Jay Byrne, I believe, something like that. Jay Byrne, I believe. Yes, because he's a rapper on the side, a hip-hop guy. So John Colburn rips him up for 150 yards and made some tremendous, Matt Colburn made some tremendous runs in this game. The last one set up the final touchdown. And 150 yards, and that brings him over the 900-yard rushing mark on the season. Scotty Washington, sophomore wide receiver, had the stats don't speak to the play that he had out there, but my goodness, Scotty Washington, 9 catches for $138. You have to catch the reception that he made in the second quarter, outstretched between 2 defenders, high pointing the football as he was airborne and then bringing it in between contact, coming on both sides. Tremendous. Cam Serenay at one point, the redshirt senior wide receiver who will be playing in the NFL next season and doing rather well. 9 catches for 112 yards. And he was at one point the only threat on this team. He was all ACC at tight end, catching 40 and 45 passes when nobody else did anything, when the running backs were barely getting 3 yards per carry, and we saw 2 of them today. Matt Colburn and Cade Carney, who relieved him down the stretch when Coburn was nicked up on one of his best runs of the day in the fourth quarter. These guys couldn't get 3.5 yards a carry. And Cam Serenay was their only threat on offense. And now they've got playmakers all over the place. This junior, Alex Bachman, had 5 catches for 84 yards. He was targeted, a main target in the second half. And Jabari Hines had a tremendous day with some tremendous catches as well for Wake Forest. So the Demon Deacons move on to 8-5 following the bowl win, their second consecutive postseason win, having upset Temple last year. Dave Clawson has something good going at Wake Forest. They are not just defeating the bottom feeders in the ACC. This season, they knocked off Louisville. They beat NC State. They played Clemson within 2 touchdowns. They almost beat Florida State. They lost in the last 45 seconds. Now they beat a quality SEC team 55-52 to finish again at 8-5 on the season. For Texas A&M, a much different story. Jimbo Fisher comes in with a huge contract. He spoke during the broadcast. He was evaluating Nick Starkel in particular, who got off to a slow start after the one long bomb to Christian Kirk that made it 14-0 after the 45-yard play after the Travion Williams run for the touchdown. 31 consecutive points for Wake Forest, and you figured, okay, Texas A&M in the situation that they are under the interim coach. And then you've got Jeff Banks trying to hold it together for Texas A&M, the assistant coach, special teams coordinator, versus a Wake Forest team that's playing for to cap off a tremendous season for them and 31 straight points. But credit Texas A&M for hanging in there. Credit Christian Kirk, who's playing for his NFL future. He's not really playing for it. It's secure. 13 catches for 189 yards, had his ankle rolled early in the fourth quarter, stayed on the field, came right back, only missed a couple plays, came right back out onto the field, and finished up to the final play of the game. Christian Kirk, tremendous talent and tremendous team and program player for Texas A&M, finishing this one up. Jamon Osborne, the freshman, finished with 50 catches on the season, had 12 on this day for 112 yards as well. He will be a key factor going forward. Travion Williams, of course, a sophomore season, not as good as his freshman campaign, but he's certainly part of this offense and a huge portion of this offense with Keith Ford moving on as a senior. He played his last game for Texas A&M. I have notes all over the place. I could go nuts for days on this game. It was a tremendous game. Again, Texas A&M, the underdog, the team that's a bit dysfunctional at this point, considering the coaching transition and the skeleton staff that had to deal with these players and this program during bowl practice. They come out with the 2 special teams plays. They go up 14-0, but Wake Forest shows to be far superior in the passing game. And just, it looked like UCLA all over again in terms of the Texas A&M opener at the Rose Bowl, and Josh Rosen carving them up, coming back from, 34 points down to win 45-44. That's what it looked like. Sean Wolford having his way, throwing for 400-plus yards. And Wake Forest with 38 points in the first half, but Texas A&M kept coming back. They made some plays defensively, just a few, not a whole lot, but they did make a few and looked a little bit better. Where they had a chance here is after halftime, trailing by 17, they cut it to 10 at half. Their freshman safety, Derek Tucker, came back. They got 2 3-and-outs that got them back into the game within the field goal, and then finally taking the lead at 48-45 before the final 5-minute drive by Wake Forest that closed it out. And then the Wake Forest defense played well despite what could be a questionable non-call by the officials, the second or third last play of the game down the field. It was the sophomore Asang Bassi, number 21, possibly interfering, but on the replay, I thought the ball was already by the receiver and the contact was made after the ball had gone by. good no call by the officials, regardless of what was stated during the broadcast. Delay of game hurt Texas A&M on the final drive as well. So great game. ACC wins one over the SEC. And we will continue out through the night with Northwestern Kentucky and, of course, North Carolina State taking on Arizona State, Ohio State in the big one in the Cotton Bowl against USC as well. We appreciate your comments and your discussion and debate amongst each other. I get to as many comments as possible right here at Mark Rogers TV, and I've been thanking the many contributors that have come on this show throughout 2017, and at last count, that number was up to 67. 67 of the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in college football joining me on Mark Rogers TV just in 2017. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, don't do it just for my analysis. I do the best I can, but that's one of the reasons why I bring on the very best that I can find to provide the insight and the information that they have for their particular teams and conferences as well, and to hear from all of you. This is a college football community right here at Mark Rogers TV College Football. We will see you next time. Enjoy the football.